Boston Bruins crushed the Los Angeles Kings on Monday thanks to Jake DeBrusk's first career hat trick and Jeremy Swayman's third career shutout. What does it mean for DeBrusk's trade value? It's an ongoing conversation that will be had over the next 21 days leading up to the NHL trade deadline. So let's get into it on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things spoke to be, as well as take a look around the NHL. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. The podcast is free and available on all platforms, as well as on YouTube, so please do hit that subscribe button, both podcast and video, and you will never miss a thing here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. You can also follow along on Twitter and Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren, a lifelong Bruins fan, covering this team for various outlets for the past 17 years. And major shout out this morning to all of you who stayed up to watch last night's game, especially if you're on the Eastern time zone like I am. I didn't quite make it, but caught all the highlights this morning. And what a game for Jake DeBrusk, as well as Jeremy Swayman. You know, I've talked a lot on the podcast this season about puck luck and how the Bruins have been doing a lot of things right offensively or just as a team. You know, their differentials when it comes to shot attempts, shots, scoring chances have been in their favor, top 5 in the NHL in a lot of these categories, but they're not getting that puck luck. Scoring 5-on-5 hasn't been there. Last night, a lot of things went right for the Boston Bruins as they scored 7 goals en route to a 7-0 win over the Los Angeles Kings, a team that had been pretty hot coming into this one, to be honest. The big story in this game was Jake DeBrusk popping off for the natural hat trick, scoring just 1 minute into the game, added another later in the first period, and then scored 53 seconds into the second to complete the natural hat trick, playing alongside Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand. Bergeron added a goal as well. Eric Howla scored twice, playing with Taylor Hall and David Pastrnak, although one of his goals was assisted by Coyle Smith, and Taylor Hall stayed red hot as well. But again, the story was Jake DeBrusk, and he is on fuego at the moment. He had a hat trick, like I said. He had an assist. He's now up to 14 goals, 24 points in 48 games. He's on a 5-game point streak, 7 goals, 9 points over that stretch, and happy to get a bit of puck luck on his side. You know, one thing about Jake DeBrusk that Bruins fans are well aware of is his streakiness. He can be very hot, like he is right now. He can really cool down at times. And he said last night that it's a kind of a funny way of looking at it, the ups and downs, because the ups means he has the attributes to score on a regular basis. He said it's the best league in the world. Hard to do this every night. Even top guys on each team have off nights or off swings, but he sure likes it when things are going like this. Bruce Cassidy said it's all there for him. The ability to see the ice, foot speed to beat guys. When he's on pucks, forechecking, he's very dangerous. If he plays a 200-foot game, consistently strong on pucks on the walls, that's an area most wingers, all guys go through it, especially young guys. It takes years to master. And on the second goal in particular, he did all of what Cassidy described. Strong forecheck, helped wreak some havoc in the King zone, circle back in the slot, and was in perfect position to pick off a cross-ice breakout attempt by a Kings defenseman, took a couple of strides, then fired a wrister off of Jonathan Quick's glove to give the Bruins a 2-0 lead. So what does this mean for Jake DeBrusk? This has been a conversation over the last several days. Being promoted to the top line with Bergeron and Marchand, obviously it's a prime spot to be in for any winger, even one who's playing on his off wing. And right now he's getting the bounces, he's putting in the effort, but he has the trade request that is looming. And, you can see that he has the support of the guys. You can see how excited Bergeron was for him. He was talking to Pasternak about picking out a hat after the game for, the hat trick. I think he picked a camo one to give to his dad, who's a big hunter. Do the Bruins? Obviously, it's good for Don Sweeney if Jake DeBrusk is playing at this high level. It boosts his trade value. There were reports earlier in the season that Sweeney was getting a lot of calls, not much in the way of tangible returns. Teams were trying to get rid of their disgruntled or underperforming players. I think GMs are savvy enough to recognize that this is a hot streak for Jake DeBrusk, but it also shows his ability. Like Bruce Cassidy said, he has all the tools to play like this night in and night out. Not get a hat trick every night, obviously, not score at a almost 2-point per game pace, but to be a regular contributor in the top 6. So if a trade is going to happen between now and the deadline, Don Sweeney can command a player who can score regularly like Jake DeBrusk is showing he can. Think about it. If right now they need Jake DeBrusk, if they trade him, who's going to fill that top line role that he's occupying right now? There's still second line center, although Hala's played pretty well in that role. You help on defense. Subtracting Jake DeBrusk from the lineup right now leaves a hole to be filled, and the way he's playing should allow for a pretty meaningful return. Or do they choose to ride it out together through the balance of the regular season into the playoffs and try to figure things out in the offseason? Perhaps a trade closer to the draft or prior to free agency so that teams can do kind of a sign and trade situation. I don't envy Don Sweeney having to make this choice, but DeBrusk's play is certainly making things a little bit easier for him in terms of finding a trade partner with a decent return, or B, answering the question as to who's going to play on the top line with Bergeron and Marchand for the balance of the season. Maybe it's best for everyone if they see him as an internal rental and address it in the offseason. We'll talk more about what last night's win means for the Bruins in the standings. Look ahead to tonight's game against the Anaheim Ducks. No rest for the weary. But first, a quick word about BetOnline. Football might be over, but basketball is in full steam for pro and college hoops. March Madness is right around the corner. It's not just basketball either. BetOnline.net is your sports for hockey, boxing, UFC, hopefully soon baseball as well. They have all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, as well as things like where to find the next fired coach. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. They have scores, podcasts, news. Head to their website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. I want to thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. Podcast free and available on all platforms, as well as on YouTube. And please now check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts, free and available wherever you get podcasts. Now, the Boston Bruins, after last night's victory, they sit in the first wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, 3 points up on the Washington Capitals with 2 games in hand. They are also 6 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs with the same amount of games played. So that, I don't know if it really matters, to be honest, where the Bruins finish, if it's first wildcard spot, second wildcard spot, or third in the Atlantic, although it should be said that they are only 6 points back also of the Tampa Bay Lightning, although the Lightning have 2 games in hand on them, as well as the Maple Leafs. They're 7 points back of the Florida Panthers. Can they catch second or third? Possibly, but right now you're looking at a scenario where in the playoffs, if they finish in the first wild card spot, they would be taking on the Florida Panthers in the first round. If they finish in the second wild card spot, they'd be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in the first round. And if they finish third in the Atlantic, they would be matched up against Tampa Bay in the first round. Those 3 teams are the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference right now. By way of point percentage, it goes Carolina, Tampa Bay, then Florida. So perhaps Florida is the better choice of the 3, but the way all 3 of those teams are playing, it's going to be a tough first round matchup no matter what. But the underlying reality is the Bruins are playing very well at the moment, and they should feel pretty comfortable right now matching up against any team in the NHL. I mentioned their underlying numbers earlier. Right now, they're 5th in the NHL, 5-on-5 shot attempt differential. They're first when it comes to shot differential. Expected goals, they're second expected goal differential. High danger chance differential, they are 4th in the NHL. So they are an elite team when it comes to possession stats, shot attempts, high danger chances, shots. Again, they're still a bit down when it comes to shooting percentage. If you listen to the chat last week with Allison Lukin, we talked about PDO. The idea is teams, you add up their shooting percentage and their save percentage, and it should add up to about 100. That's kind of the mean, the average. The Bruins right now, 987, which puts them 28th when it comes to PDO. Their shooting percentage, keeping them down. They're getting excellent goaltending at the moment. Over his last 6 games, Jeremy Swayman has a record of 5-0-1 with a 971 point percent or save percentage. Definitely belongs in the Calder conversation, and he's emerging as the Bruins' number 1 goalie, the guy that could get the Lions' share of starts down the stretch and be the starter into the playoffs. Having said that, it will be Linus Ullmark who will get the start tonight. The Bruins wisely choosing to make use of this tandem in a back-to-back situation. The Anaheim Ducks enter this game chasing a playoff spot in the Western Conference. Right now, I believe they are on the outside looking in when it comes to the wild card. They are, 2 points back of Dallas, 2 points back of Edmonton in the race for that second wild card spot. They are led in scoring by Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, Sonny Milano. They have a very good up-and-coming team. Perhaps not quite there. They're trying to make some decisions about some players heading into the trade deadline. Hampus Lindholm, Rickard Rakell. Do they want to keep going with this youth movement? The Bruins, not always successful when it comes to traveling to Anaheim. And we'll have to see if the Boston Bruins are able to keep this winning trend going. Just trying to find their all-time win-loss records against the Anaheim Ducks. They're 16, 19, and 2 against the Ducks. And in Anaheim, they are, let's see here. Where do they play? The Anaheim Ducks. Anyways, they have not been super successful in Anaheim over the years. The Honda Center 7-9-2 over the course of the Ducks' existence. So they have struggled against the Ducks. Hopefully they can keep things going tonight in a game that could help them in terms of the standings. Stay above the Washington Capitals, who lost last night to the Toronto Maple Leafs, continue to put some distance between themselves and the Capitals. But again, it's kind of pick your poison when it comes to first round opponent for the Bruins. I should note as well, Charlie McAvoy had 2 assists, giving him 34 points, 7 goals, 27 assists, surpassing his previous career high of 32 points. That was set a couple seasons ago. Eric Haula picked up his 100th career goal. It's hard to choose anybody but Jake DeBrusk as the Big Bear, but he did get those honors the other night. And I think instead, I'm going to give it to Eric Haula. I've been a bit, I wouldn't say critical of him, but a bit questionable perhaps of whether or not he can carry the load as the Bruins' second line center. Last night, he had the 2 goals, 3 shots. He threw in a hit and a block as well. And perhaps, like I've said before, maybe it doesn't even matter who is playing with David Pastrnak and Taylor Hall. Those guys can drive any line. And I really do think that it's possible they might stick there. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind seeing an upgrade at the second line center position still. And Eric Howell, I think, is more of a bottom 6 forward right now for a championship caliber team. Before we get to some news and notes from around the NHL, I want to talk for a quick moment about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's almost impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, and you can save time and money by using this family-owned business who's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are always reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you could need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. And write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your day. Now make Locked On Fantasy Hockey your next listen as hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league, free and available wherever you get podcasts. Now, I haven't really talked about the situation in Europe with Ukraine being invaded by Russia, but the NHL did put out a statement yesterday that's worth noting. They said the NHL condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine and urges a peaceful resolution as quickly as possible. Effective immediately, we're suspending our relationship with our business partners in Russia, and we are pausing our Russian language social and digital media sites. In addition, we're discontinuing any consideration of Russia as a location for any future competitions involving the NHL. We also remain concerned about the well-being of the players from Russia who play in the NHL on behalf of their NHL clubs and not on behalf of Russia. We understand they and their families are being placed in an extremely difficult position. And that is the end of the statement. So I respect the NHL for this statement, for putting some limits on Russia and NHL participation, but also respecting the players whose families may be in danger. As I'm reading that, I wonder about, you see FIFA, the IOC removing Russia from future events. The NHL talked about a World Cup possibly next year or the year after to replace Olympic participation. I wonder if Russia would be removed from that. That's an interesting question, to be sure, and we'll see how that shakes out. Again, today the calendar flips to March. 3 weeks until the NHL trade deadline, or less than 3 weeks. It occurs Monday, the 21st, and there will certainly be a lot of reports, speculation, rumors. The Bruins, of course, I believe will be active. We've seen Don Sweeney be pretty active over the last few seasons. And if his recent trend continues, it won't be shooting for rental situations, but players with term, like he did with Kasha and Richie, like he did with Charlie Coyle, Taylor Hall. I guess Taylor Hall didn't have any commitment to the Bruins beyond last season, but that was definitely worth the risk. Curtis Lazar was part of that, and he had some control as well. Just be careful when you're reading those reports, rumors. Take some with a grain of salt. Others you can trust. And I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Thank you for sticking with the podcast. I do appreciate the support. February was another great month, and I'm excited to see continued growth here in March. So please do subscribe. Download as often as possible. I realize it may be a challenge to listen every day, but any and every listen is very much appreciated, as well as the views on YouTube. Please do subscribe over there as well. Another game for the Bruins tonight, another late one. And tomorrow we'll be back to recap that game, look ahead at the Vegas game, maybe answer some mailbag questions. If you have any, please send those over. And just bring you all the latest on the Black and Gold here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care, friends.